All right, peace and much love, Zin Uru here. Welcome to the latest installment of Message from the Minista. This week's message from the Minista is titled, The Mind as a Weapon. The Mind as a Weapon. We're going to be talking about spiritual self-defense again this week, and more specifically, using our mind as a defense system, as a weapon as well, offense and defense. Remember, most weapons are not just for defense, they're for offense. Not just for offense, they're for defense as well. And so we'll get into that this week. I want to welcome you all here. Thank you all for being here across all time and all space, no matter where you're at in our so-called future, or no matter where you're at in this so-called realm we call Earth. Welcome here, because we are all here together in spirit. And this week's a little different than other weeks in that I'm just doing a little switch up. This week we're going to be reading from the exact same passage from the Gospel of Hip Hop that we read from last week. And the reason that I wanted to do that this week is because, you know, as a philosopher myself and somebody who studies philosophies and studies sacred texts and all forms of different literature, when I get to a book, specifically with the Gospel of Hip Hop, specifically, I will sometimes take a passage and read it for a week. It'll be, 5, 10, 12 paragraphs, and I'll read those over and over for a week just to get those ideas, just that specific idea or what that specific segment is talking about. And I've noticed over time is that, well, with any of the great works of the masters, and specifically with the Gospel of Hip Hop too, written by the teacher KRS-One, presented to the Temple of Hip Hop, and I am a recognized intellectual and spiritual contributor in the Gospel of Hip Hop. The reason that it's so profound to me is because some passages will have multiple meanings in it, or the application, because it's a metaphysical book, there will be multiple facets or perspectives to view the knowledge from. And so last week while we were reading, last week's message from the Minista was about integrity. Integrity is longevity. And we were reading from the Gospel of Hip Hop, the Eighth Overstanding Endarkenment, track 4. And while we were reading it, there's a line in there that says, the mind as a weapon. And right at that moment, I wrote it down. If any of you saw last week's message, I was like, yo, that's it. That's the message from the Minista next week. And so I thought it would be fun this week to have a different message from the Minista, well, at least a different theme or variation on the theme of the topic, that the mind is a weapon, even though we're reading from the same passage we read last week, because what will happen is we'll see that everything in life is multifaceted. Everything has a different perspective and different points of view. And so if we're looking at, say, something like endarkenment, and we're talking about our spiritual integrity and our ability to move about the world and affect light energy, electromagnetic light energy at its source, which is thought, it's very profound, right? We're like, yo, man, this is really deep. We can then now read that same passage and get deeper into what does it mean for the mind as a weapon. Because the mind can be a weapon, the mind can be a vessel, the mind can be a ship, the mind can be a time-traveling device, the mind can be whatever, we're able to visualize in that mind, God willing. It's a healthy, loving, aware, and wealthy visualization, no doubt, H-law visualization, because the mind has this incredible ability that as a man thinketh, so is he. As a man thinketh in his heart, so it is with him. This is ancient wisdom and ancient knowledge, that as what we constantly think about, we begin to see in our environment. What we constantly meditate upon and think about and put feeling into, because when we're constantly thinking about something, we're putting some amount of feeling into it, especially if it's something we want to think about a lot. And that can work for the better or for the so-called worse, because, if a man is thinking about, his body being in a healthy, optimal condition, he's going to make those decisions to keep his body and put his body into a healthy, optimal condition. If a man's thinking, man, I'm getting old, I'm getting tired, I'm getting worn out, then he's going to put his body into that condition of being old, tired, and worn out. And I saw that this week. I saw that this week, and mind is a weapon. Let's start with age, right? So-called age. Because we've been conditioned by the colonizer to believe that we grow old, and as we grow old, we wear down. And yes, there is a certain idea to that, but our bodies are wearing out and running down way too fast because the system that we live in, first off, doesn't teach us to fast. If you don't fast, your body will wear out faster. Keep that in mind. Those who don't fast, their body wears out faster. And I'm not talking about like three-day fast and 10-day fast or any long period of fasting. I'm just talking about straight intermittent fasting, taking 12 hours between meals, eating for 8 hours, then taking 12 hours off. There's a, what is that? Eating for, I guess 24 hours in a day, eating and then giving yourself 12 hours to digest before you eat again, or eat a couple meals and then give the body 12 hours, 14 hours, 16 hours to digest. If you fast, those who don't fast, body ages faster. But so with the body and the mind as a weapon, we're bombarded with these ideas as we get older. We start breaking down, we start experiencing fatigue, we start getting slower, our brain slows down as our eyesight goes, all of this. And so what happens is, because our mind doesn't have the defense system, a lot of people accept those false beliefs into their system. And then they just start running that like a computer running a hard drive. They just start, as I get older, I get broken down. I was watching something about something on Netflix this week about food masters or something like that. Oh, pizza masters, right? And no disrespect to nobody here, but I was watching this dude, right? And he's talking about, this epic journey of his life and his hero's quest, and ultimately making the world's greatest pizza and becoming this this popular guy in the world. But I'm watching the dude, and I'm thinking this dude's got to be nearing 60 years old, right? Easy, if not 64. And he's talking about his body and it wearing down and all this and the wrinkles and no offense to nobody, but the dude said at my age, when you turn 49. I was like, the way this dude was talking, I would have thought he was an old man already. The way he was looking, I would have thought he was an old man. And I'm going, yo, man, I'm 49. I'm more vibrant and more energetic than my 20-year-old self. I know how to rest better. I know how to take care of my body more properly than I did in my 20s. I burnt a lot of extra energy. I wasted a lot of energy in my 20s that I would suggest, if you're in your 20s now, you listen to Minister Zin Uru about the body, because by the time you turn 50, your 50-year-old self will be thanking your early 20-year-old self, because it took care of itself. And I never ate like super unhealthy, but back in my early 20s, I was doing fast food. I was going out to eat at restaurants and drinking a lot, and I was just eating a lot of sugar, drinking soda pop. I worked hard, so I burnt a lot of it off as far as calories go. But man, that stuff was affecting my mind and my mental state. But those adults that I saw around me at the time, I remember this guy I worked with, Jim. He was going through this midlife crisis because he was about to turn 40. And he was worn out at 40. He was talking about how he needed to make all these changes in his body at 40. He's getting 40. He's having a hard time standing up. And I remember just thinking like, I'm not going to go out like that. And this is like right after I had a back injury. And so somewhere along that line, my prayer was heard by God. I don't remember specifically making that prayer, but the intention of my soul, what my mind was focused on, was that I'm not going to get old like everybody else. I'm going to heal my back. I had found out about like medicinal teas. They started selling like throat coat tea and things like that. So I started learning about herbalism, and I moved up to the mountains, right? I moved up to the mountains and with my family for like 2 years. And I took Tai Chi classes, and I ran into this Tai Chi class, and all of a sudden, after I've told the story before, I started doing the Tai Chi, my body started getting better. But what happened really, truly was the mind received new knowledge and new information. Other people were in the same class saying, this BS doesn't work. This is whack. My body don't feel no better. My back and hip pain ain't going away. How are you going to fight if you're moving like this? How's this any kind of self-defense? How's this even called a martial art when all we're doing is going like this, you know? But, you know, we just get our hands to move together as one unit and to move the chi and feel the body and the balance. But the mind, my own mind, was willing to accept this new knowledge in. As it is accepting and receiving this new knowledge in, the body begins to move, do the movements, take the knowledge in, put it to use, hip and hop, intelligent movement. And so all of a sudden now, for $45 for the whole semester, which was like 4 months or 3 months or whatever a semester is, 2 times a week, for $45, I healed a back injury that I was told was going to need surgery, and I was going to have to learn to live with the pain my whole life. Just from Tai Chi for $45 at a local college. And with that, you know, with that expansion, I would realize that, you know, I'd be out and about doing something. You know, I was digging trenches. I was doing landscape. I was doing hard labor at the time. You know, I'd hit my hand with a hammer, or I don't know, I just, you know, pick up a rock wrong or something like that. And I realized over time that, you know, I could meditate on my body and that it would start healing faster, okay? So the mind now, as a weapon, the mind becomes a shield, so to speak. So the ideas of other people that you get older, when you're in your 40s, you're already getting old. See, I didn't receive that in because my mind put up a shield. It put up a weapon. When we read weapon in the dictionary, we'll realize that a weapon is a shield. It's a defensive mechanism as well as an offensive mechanism. Like a lightsaber, right? A lightsaber is both. See, when they get the lightsaber going, boom, it's a defensive weapon. It works as a shield against lasers. It works as a shield, you know, same as a sword, where it's blocking, you know, another sword coming in. But it's also a defensive weapon where it lops somebody's head off as well. So the mind can be both of those. But when we're talking about the mind as a weapon right now, we're talking about it defensively. So these ideas are coming into the world that, like, you know, I mean, it's anything really. What is it that the world is telling you that you can't do or that you're not worthy of? What is the ego of the world trying to convince you? What lie is the ego of the world saying to you right now that your mind can just say, wait, halt, boom, and like a shield, boom, just bounces right up, choo, 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 like a force field, right? You put this force field up, and these bad ideas, these lies, which is what they really are, start bouncing off. And then the mind has it has a larger arena to move in, because now it can move in different environments, different thought environments. And with the shield up, with the defense mechanism ready, now we can say, oh, these are bad ideas. Well, these bad ideas my mind has already foreseen that this is a bad idea. So therefore, this bad idea is not going to take hold. It's not going to take root in the garden of my mind and create weeds and choke out the trees or choke out the bushes that are food-bearing plants, nutrition. I mean, what a revelation that is to really think about, right? Because most people are going around and they're victims of their mind. And you know, this system that we live in is fear-based system. Whether it's in the movies, whether it's on, you know, whatever it is, it's a fear-based system in the media, coming from the government, coming from entertainment, coming from the neighbors, coming from the church, coming from school system. the Democrats, the Republicans, this fear-based idea that there's always something bad coming. There's always something evil on the horizon. Always something, and just like that, oh, we age. Oh, we need this. Oh, we have to trust these people. Oh, we have to vote for evil. We have to vote for the lesser of two evils. All these lies coming in. And people believe those, and then when they believe those, their body, their movement, their life just starts acting accordingly to those false beliefs, to those lies. But when the mind is healthy and vibrant and strong and it's got a good solid force field, it can allow and it knows what the good ideas are. It can allow and feel the good ideas inside. Like, that's a good idea to know that tuning into the breath once a day through like Tai Chi or yoga, or it's just stretching, or even a good walk outside, even a good walk. Never underestimate the power of a good walk, a 15, 20-minute walk outside once or twice a day, 4 or 5 days a week, going on that walk. As I get more fluid and as my body burns and calories off, or as my blood flows and moves and my magnetic field is increased and strengthened, I don't get as sick. I walk a little, taller. My body feels more fluid in its movement. I have a little more energy. I sleep a little bit better. All these things start coming into play. Why? Because the mind is a weapon. The mind decided to defend the body against that bad idea, defend itself from that bad idea. And then because there's no bad idea come crashing in, really the good natural ideas that are within us that just spring forward, our intelligent movement, our hip hop just begins moving forward. And just these good ideas, it's like, it's a good idea to do Tai Chi. Oh, it's a good idea to meditate. Oh, it's a good idea to drink more water. Oh, it's a good idea to lessen my intake of alcohol, or lessen my intake of sugar, or lessen my intake of bleached flour, or lessen my intake of whatever it is, fried food, or whatever it is that is causing the body any kind of harm or lethargy. And this goes a long way now because, with the martial arts, they're like any martial art, with kids coming in, and we'll tie this into, martial arts as the 9 elements, or really the core 4, breaking, emceeing, graffiti art, or DJing, really 5, we put beatboxing in there too. A child, when he would come into the martial arts class, he would be afraid at school, or he would have his head down like this, and he didn't have confidence in himself. But as he would take, it wasn't even like a verbal thing said to the kid. It was just the idea that this kid could go out in the world and at least defend himself from a bully attack. All of a sudden the kid would come in with his chest up a little, his head up a little higher, speaking more clearly, looking us in the eye, participating more. Parents would be saying, we can't believe the change in him. It's been great. And sometimes those kids would only need, 3 months of classes, and then their life would move on, and they would move on to some other endeavor or something. But those 3 months of classes even could change that child's life forever. And it's because when we feel threatened in our environment, we close ourselves off. We look down. We don't want to be seen. We kind of want to be unnoticed, and we talk in low voices, and we don't really command our environment. And it's like, hey, you over there, move. Okay. And people start moving around like that. But when we're not afraid of our environment, when we're walking around in our environment with confidence, and we just look around our environment, and we're able to help out. We're able to help people out in our environment, for one thing, when we have confidence, let alone ourselves. And so the mind is a defense mechanism in that way. It's the confidence that's created. It's the faith that's created that, I'm in this environment now, I'm going to be okay. And this for me is where, the elements come in. And because there's a mystical side to the core, really the core 4 elements, the artistic elements, the artistic expression. And it isn't the other 5 elements, don't get me wrong. We can go into that too. But really, these artistic elements, they're like that kung fu. They're like our form of kung fu. They're like our form of martial arts. They're our form of self-defense. They're spiritual self-defense. Because and we'll see this in Endarkenment, it doesn't specifically say the 9 elements, but watch how we tie that in, is that with those 9 elements, what we're doing is we're fortifying the mind, we're preparing the mind ahead of time. See, so if somebody's afraid to grab the mic, but they want to grab the mic, they can go home and practice grabbing the mic, so when they do grab the mic in front of people in public, they're no longer afraid. See, that's the mind sharpening itself, because then the mind gets up there in front of people and says, well, at least I know how to spit a freestyle now. At least I know how to 1, 2, 1, 2 and jump on the beat right now. At least right now I've got a 16 written in my head that I can spit over any style of beat and set the party off, you know. And so what happens is that person goes in there with more confidence. But the mystical side of this is when you have one confidence in one arena, you end up having more confidence in other arenas, because you've mastered a skill, you've mastered a technique, you've mastered yourself, you've mastered your mind, and your mind is no longer your master. You become the master of the mind, and as a master of the mind, you can wield that mind, right? So the samurai sword, as an example, they had to learn to master the sword. But before they mastered the sword, it was the sword that mastered the samurai. It was the sword that mastered the samurai until the samurai mastered the sword. And it's a big difference, because a samurai sword unmastered, one slip and the dude could chop his own arm off. One slip and he could kill the other people in his company or in his battalion. You know, one movement of the sword, and the sword is mastered that person and chops his own leg off. Think of a lightsaber like that. Dude just turns it on right into his face and shoots it through his face, right? I mean, so once the sword had been mastered, that's the analogy there. Once the mind is mastered, then the mind can be wielded in all kind of situations, in all kind of environments. And you realize then that it's the willpower, it's the character, it's these type of things that come into an environment. And the defense is, this is the miracle of it. This is what the mind does to me that is amazing, is the mind can take negativity and transmute it into positivity, can take so-called fear and doubt and turn it into hope and confidence. See? The mind can transmute subjects and objects. This is hip-hop is consciousness now. The consciousness of the mind can transmute subjects and objects. And in that transmutation, to express itself, it can transmute those subjects and objects into defense mechanisms or into offensive mechanisms as well. I'll say this, you know, when I did the Sword from the Word from the Tone album, it was, I took the S off the sword from the stone and realized, oh, the word from the tone. And the analogy there is that, you know, when we pick up the steel, the Grandmaster Caz said in the Beat Street, I'm not some Beat Street, in the Wild Style, the Subway rap, Wild Style, the Subway rap, he says, I'm a warrior. My art is my sword. A place in society is my reward, right? I was like, yo, that's deep. And the teacher always called the mic the steel. Yo, you're going to pick up the steel? And the book of Revelations, the word is a flaming sword coming out of the mouth of the Christ. And so, you know, I've always used the word and the mic as this symbol, as a sword. It's our modern day sword. And so, yo, man, when we wield that sword, we wield that word, we wield that sound vibrational power, we can create around us our environment that protects us. We can create an environment that transmutes adversity that comes within, and create an environment that if anybody does want to attack us, we can battle that. We can battle it big time. You know, I just Forged in the Wasteland, okay? I'll just put a drop here real quick. Forged in the Wasteland, this is the new Zin Uru album. I saw that pavement and it made me think of Antioch, where I grew up in the Bay Area, man. And Forged in the Wasteland, like, there's a little story that goes behind it. I just wanted to take this moment because it goes into, and it really speaks of the mind as a weapon. And, you know, when I was recording Forged in the Wasteland, it was over the last, I don't know, couple years since 2019, moving to San Antonio, going through all of the, through 2020, 2021, the so-called lockdowns, this, that, and the other. And, going into deep study about a lot of different things, philosophical things, a lot of ideas, a lot of so-called conspiracy theories, a lot of prophecy, a lot of prayer, a lot of meditation, a lot of, talking one-on-one with my brothers and sisters. All of that went into this album. And this album, for me, it's that expression, it's that defense mechanism against the world outside that's trying to encroach upon our sovereign consciousness, our sovereignty as hip-hop, our sovereignty as God's sounds, as God's created children. We are in this earth as sovereign beings. And so with my word, and I can express this in such a way that it creates an environment around me that empowers not only myself, but those around me, and empowers the hip hop nation. And then it can be used also as a sword, because I see what they got aimed. I see them aiming at our children. I see their weapons. I see the weapons that they have aimed at our children. I get to come with a mighty sword. I get to come with the sword of Zin Uru, the flaming sword of Eden, right? And I get to come with this sword and use it as a defense mechanism, as an offensive mechanism when I'm spitting that fire. And so I was like, forged in the wasteland, man. Like, I grew up in Antioch, California, in the Bay Area, out in the East Bay, out by Stockton. And, Stockton and Antioch are very, very similar. Most people know about Stockton, but they don't know about Antioch. Out in Antioch, it was just gravel everywhere. Gravel and cement everywhere. Our home was backed up a few blocks away from these, from kind of like the undeveloped hill country where they were going to start building all these nice new homes and stuff. But that was it. The nature was just fields and fields of like dead yellow weeds, right? You just drive by these dead yellow weeds on your way to Sacramento. And it was just, I just called it the wasteland. There's factories everywhere. You just smell all kind of shit in the air. Just your lungs would burn. People had asthma, people getting cancer all the time, because of all these chemicals, because it's in the Bay Area. There's water, there's waterways where they can ship and do all this kind of things. And Dow Chemicals had a plant right out there in Antioch. And oh man, it's just nasty. Just nasty. There's like this this is crazy. I was thinking about this week, but there was so much satanic undertones growing up in Antioch. There were so many haunted stories. I don't know. I didn't grow up anywhere else. I don't know if y'all experienced this or not. We had this place called Old Empire Mine Road and then Gravity Road. And you would go out there and it's this flat road. It was level. You could put a level on it. It was level. And you'd park your car in neutral, right? It was out on this old country road, and you put your car in neutral, and then all of a sudden it would start rolling and rolling and rolling forward. And if you turned to the other way, it would roll forward the other way. And you would get the chills, and it would look like people were pushing the car off the road, right? And it was like always these dead trees out there. Me and my cousin were driving out there one late night, and we saw a seance out there. They had like a flame, and they had hoods on. It was wild. It was wild. And you heard all these stories, Kids would go missing all the time out there. Kids would just be disappearing. It was just a weird thing to grow up in, and you'd hear about all these witches that were haunting. Like there was a place called Black Diamond Mines, and so like growing up, like I'd see pentagrams. Kids was painting pentagrams. I don't know if everybody else went through this. I don't know. I'm just telling you my story, right? You see pentagrams in like bathrooms in grade school and high school, and people would be painting, like the devil horns, and it's just kind of a trip, it's just, I don't know, man. And I think about that on top of driving or skateboarding, and for hours and hours, I had to get big soft wheels, which weren't really good for tricks, but they were good for cruising. And what would happen on my skateboard is I was always on the asphalt, right? So that's why I use the asphalt on the cover and called Forged in the Wasteland, That's where a lot of my early philosophy and thinking got done, was just put my Walkman out, my headphones, listening to, Public Enemy, Beastie Boys, The Clash, U2, the list just goes on and on. Bob Dylan, Jimi Hendrix, Funkadelic, like Led Zeppelin, just listening to my headphones and skating as when I was getting into music and learning about music. And, KRS-One, and thinking about that's what forged me. That's what forged my character. That's what gave me a strong mind. Because there was a lot of temptations in that environment, a lot of meth. Methamphetamine was real big in Antioch. Downtown where my brother ended up living when he moved out of house, there'd be these races. And so you go down to his house on a Friday and a Saturday night, and they'd be having the local races. And it's the whole neighborhood would be just covered in tire smoke and fuel. And I mean, and you would see it. If you went there, you would see it reflected in the local community. That there's some toxic environment. So forged in the wasteland, this is where a lot of us come out of, and whether it's inner city urban environments or suburban wasteland environments like I came out of, this is where when hip hop came and really overstanding hip hop, and I used to, I started out as a graffiti artist. That graffiti gave me a confidence as I walked around. I was covered in pimples. I was skinny. I was a dork, like as a kid, but I could do graffiti art. But that graffiti, when I draw people's names in fat letters or color them in, and people give me, $5, $10, $2, buy me lunch, trade things, whatever it was. That was kind of like my first taste of building my confidence. And at that same time, 12, 13 years old, I'm learning karate, and so then my confidence is building up. And then skateboarding was great exercise too. And as a skater, used to get picked on back then. Skating was the football players and stuff. We used to make fun of it. And but then I'll tell you, the vatos have our side, man. Like the Mexicanos, man, they had the skaters' side, because in where I grew up, like white culture and Latino culture met as skateboarding, right? But there was a certain, the mainstream white culture didn't accept skateboarding, but the Latino community, it wasn't as frowned on then. So as a skater, I was welcome in Latino communities and in neighborhoods and things like that. It was cool when I'm skating through it. I knew kids from school because I was a skater and because of my style, which back then, skating, I don't, for me, I don't remember the difference between skating and hip hop. And so this offered me a certain confidence and a certain ability to move in my environment that my mind knew about. Intelligent movement now at that point, even though I didn't call it that. My mind became the weapon, became the defense mechanism. And I could throw my hands if I needed to, but I never needed to, because I didn't walk like somebody who'd be picked on, right? And certainly didn't, with my size, I didn't start no fights, especially back then, man. I was a skinny little kid back then. But my mind knew that the best way to keep itself safe is to not start fights. And so I didn't start fights. And this is where, when we master an element or we master a craft, we move through the world in more confidence. And so when Forged in the Wasteland, while I'm writing this and seeing all this, it's really reflected, that environment that I grew up in and the world now, it's really reflected. There's this satanic overtone of mass in the media, in the movies, in the so-called entertainment industry, in the music, this overtone, okay? Everything is pavement, everything's a wasteland, everything's covered in pollution, everything's covered in chemicals, and there's this vapor around us. And most of the time, we have to drive out to get to nature. We've got to make an effort. We've got to spend the money. We've got to get back to nature. I can go back in my backyard and sit under the tree, but I hear the cars going by, the sirens, the helicopters, the airplanes, the whatever it is going by. And a lot of the walking that I do still, because I enjoy it, because this is where I was born, let it be here. And you know, it's just looking at the asphalt everywhere. But I move about this environment. We move about our environments. I know we are moving about our environments. We are moving about this wasteland as hip-hoppers with a certain light upon us, with a certain empowerment upon us. Because our mind has mastered its environment, because we can express ourselves and express who we are, and we know who we are. We have knowledge of self in this environment. We move in this environment with more empowerment. And that's the forging. That's the forging process. When we read about it last week, and we'll read about it again, it's like a lot of the most enlightening, if not the most enlightening of life circumstances come in the darkest of circumstances. Okay? The pressure creates the gems. It's the cold steel put in the fire, the forging in the fire that weakens the steel, then pulled out of the fire as it's putting that pressure, as it's putting that heat onto that steel, as it's softening that steel gets pulled out of the forge, put into the oil or put into the water to cool off, and that steel is harder. And that forging too, the forging is getting hit, that steel getting hit and getting molded and getting bended by God's will into a piece of useful steel, a piece of useful iron, something that can be used as a tool to help the world and to help ease the suffering of the world. And that's when the mind is its most powerful, because it's a tool. It's a tool of defense. It's a tool of offense. It's a tool to build with. It's a tool capable of recreating everything. That in 100 years from now, people wouldn't even know who the so-called royal family is of England. Nobody gives a shit nowadays. Like literally, I'll tell you, people in the future, nobody gives a shit nowadays about it. I don't. It's like, it's make-believe. Like the royal family, it's make-believe. It's a make-believe scenario. They're make-believers. It's a fantasy, it's a lie that they just convince people to believe. And so people believe and believe it has the power. But when the mind is strong enough to put a shield up and go, I see that lie for what it is, and no, I will not enable that lie. What? Boom, B-boy stance. I will not enable that lie. And that empowerment comes, man. That empowerment for me, because I could speak. I know how to speak now. The word from the tone, the sword from the stone. This is how we speak. We can speak in empowering language as an MC. We can create empowering music, uplifting music through the beats. You know, it's just a certain style of hip-hop beats that empowers people. They hear it, and it's just like, oh man, that beat just gives me confidence. Yo, let's go. You know, dancing is a great way you talk about movement, man. I've seen some B-boys, man, you just switch that into a martial art, man, they mess somebody up quick. That's more self-defense mechanisms. That's more self-defense of the mind, body, soul, because it's all interlaced at that point. When the mind is a weapon, the body becomes that. The word becomes that. And a weapon as a defensive and as an offensive as well. And it begins within. You know, I'm putting a lot out there. But it begins within. It begins with the own bad ideas, the own misinterpretations, the own lies we may tell ourselves, the own fears we may try and embrace, the own doubts and disbeliefs and all of that. You know, that sword is, I debate my doubts. Okay, I'm going to debate my doubts with my sword. You want to debate? Let's go. Boom. I'm going to diss my disbeliefs. I'm going to diss that disbelief with a sword. Oh, what? You don't think I can do it? Freak. Well, I didn't hear you no more. Oh, you can't say nothing because I just chopped off my disbelief? Word. And I'll face that fear. Face those fears, my nobility. Those fears are there to strengthen us. That's what they're here for. They're here to strengthen us. Like opportunity, like difficult circumstances. Like opportunity is found in difficult circumstances. I don't know how it works for everybody else. I only know how it works for me with my path as a hip-hopper on the path of God. It's led me to the tree of life. Like, I don't know how it works for everybody else. But I felt myself forged in the fire. I felt myself forged in the wasteland. I felt God every bink, oh, bink, oh, bink, oh, until all of a sudden that lump of steel, that cold, block of steel that I used to be, that ore, have been forged and bent and forged and bent and then shaped and then hardened and then sharpened. You know, that's what happened. It happened with my mind. And I remember being just that ore, all that potential. That ore is just potential. It's like raw potential. But then that ore being forged into steel and into a mighty weapon, a mighty tool. And so no matter where you're at, you're watching this, you're either forged, getting ready to be forged, you're that ore being ready to be forged, you're being forged right now, which is a long process. You're being tempered right now, which is its own process. You're being sharpened right now, which is its own process. Or then you're being wielded. And as you're being wielded, like, yo, stay sharp, my nobility. If God is wielding you, stay sharp. And because, you know, at any time, you know, as we read, that what the mind creates, the mind must maintain. So if your mind is creating a healthy body, the mind must maintain that healthy body. Those habits must be maintained. So as God's transforming you, you don't want to go out there and then be a sword and miss a step to where it's got a weak, I forget what they call it, but inside there, I forget the name, I forget what they call it, but there's weak spots in the sword where the steel will just break because it wasn't forged properly, because it wasn't heat treated properly. Now, there's no shame in remaining ore. That's what God creates, the ore. But, that piece of ore that God picks up and starts forging, if you comply to God's movement, to God forging you into what God's vision is for you, and we share that vision with God. We say, God, what do you envision for me? And they say, I want to envision what you envision for me, God. Well, then all of a sudden, the world just becomes a whole different thing. I'm still learning the philosophy of what to call this, because it's amazing. And what we're capable of and what we'll see in the future that we're capable of as hip-hoppers, and as we get more like-mindedness and we start putting these metaphysics to use and putting these physics to use and really using our mind as a weapon, using our mind as a defense mechanism, we're going to see that the world changes around us. And it happens as individuals and as collectively, and it's happening. It's happening. And as dark as the world may seem, this is what we're reading in the document. We are the light of our world. And it may seem uncomfortable, let's reminder from last week too, God has sacrificed us as the light of this world to be put here to help ease the suffering of this world, to help evolve this world. And this world is evolving right now. A lot of people are learning who we are not by being what we are not. The world itself is learning what it is not by becoming what it is not. And as the world makes all these mistakes and lives through the consequences of the great mistakes that are happening right now, as it lives through those consequences, the true who we really are as a collective will begin to rise up. But hip-hop, we have a very special opportunity right now because we have advanced knowledge. For some reason, and we know what that reason is, it's because God loves us, God sees us, God chooses us, and God wants to work through us. And we need to meet God at that promise. That's the promised land. And the present, I was saying this a couple weeks ago, but boy, is this profound, right? The present is the gift. The present is the gift, and our purpose in the present moment is the gift. And we can say to God, what are my gifts? But it's the same as getting a present when we're a kid. What did you get me? Unwrap your gift and see what I got you. God is saying to you, if you don't know what your spiritual gifts are, or you may be wondering what they are, God, what are my gifts? No, God's just saying, just unwrap your gifts, unwrap them. Unwrap yourself in the present moment, which means to receive oneself. I'm just going to receive who I am in this present moment, receive that, God's really got my back. God cares about me. God's given me a purpose in this life. Let me receive that and become that. And just be that right now and be that gift. And then those gifts, not only empower us, but they empower others too. That's the beauty of it. Let's put weapon up here on the screen. It's a pretty short definition. Weapon. And I like this too, an instrument. Okay, because it's an instrument. Your voice is an instrument. The turntables are an instrument. An electric guitar is an instrument. A weapon is an instrument of attack or defense in combat as a gun, missile, or sword. Now see this? An instrument of attack, that's offense, or defense in combat as a gun, missile, or sword. Zoology, a weapon, a part of an organ. See that organ right there? See that organ right there? They're talking about a body's organs, but an organ is also what? An instrument. An organ can make beautiful music. Zoology, a part of an organ, such as a claw or stinger used by an animal in attack or defense. See, we read about this earlier on in Endarkenment, that, our mind is it's our porcupine spine. It's our claws. It's our defense system. A stinger used by an animal in an attack or defense. See, attack is offense or defense. See, this is wonderful that they recognize that a weapon is an offensive instrument and a defensive instrument as well. Definition number 3, a means used to defend against or defeat another. Logic was her weapon. Isn't that great? The mind is a weapon, and then they give us logic was her weapon. I mean that was it for right there. That was it for weapon. It's for offense and for defense. It's an instrument. See, we are instruments of God. A sword is an instrument. A good Prince's guitar is an instrument, So we're Prince's guitar, and God is like Prince playing us, And so we could sit there as this instrument of God and let this sound resound through us. And this sound is a weapon. This sound is an offensive weapon. It's a defensive weapon. It can cut through the lies. It can cut through the lies and give truth. How many great songs have just spoken the truth to your soul? How many songs have revealed the nature of who you are, cut through the lies just because of a rhyme or even just a feeling you get when you hear an amazing musician play something? It's beyond words. That's you, my nobility. That's us. That's our sound. That's our vibration. That's our intelligent movement right there. That's our hip and our hop, our defense and our offense. And we can walk through this world with a certain amount of confidence, but we're not stupid. We're not ignorant in the face of adversity. We're not ignorant in the face of real danger. We're not stupid in the face of that. Why? Because the mind is intelligent movement. The mind isn't going to allow us in its right, in the mind, when we put the mind in its rightful place, we're not going to allow the mind to put us into dangerous situations. If a dangerous situation happens, the mind will quickly move us out of there. But if we're attracted, if the mind is the master and the mind is attracted to the violence and the mind is attracted to the debauchery and the mind is attracted to the lust and the mind is attracted to whatever the dangerous situation and attracted to the sickness and the hatred and the ignorance and the poverty, if the mind's attracted to that and attracted to the addictions, if the mind's attracted to all that, then it's going to put the body in harm's way. It's going to put the body in those environments that bring harm. So the mind then is the trap. The mind then is the weapon being used against itself. It's the samurai who can't control his sword and chops off his own head, chops off his own hand, chops off his, the other guy in his company's arm. That's the mind that isn't wielded properly. That's the mind of an undisciplined man or woman. And the ideas of the world and the media and advertising and all of this and the Barnes and Noble foo-foo, so-called spirituality and all this, their idea is that the average person just gives control of the mind over to them. Let us wield your mind for you. It's too dangerous for you to handle. Let us show you how to handle it. Let us tell you where to go with it. Let us take your mind in our institutionalized learning facilities where we domesticate your children. Oh, education, right? We call it education, but it's really domestication. Let us take control of the weapons of the mind so they're not used against the ruling class, that they're not used against those who are stealing the world's resources. They're not used against those who are murdering children. They're not used against those who are stealing from our parents and pensions and creating all this drama. They're used against those who oppose them. So when we learn to use our mind as a weapon, even like forged in the wasteland, it's not just speaking. I'm fully aware of those in our own community who are still brainwashed by the system, who are still servants of the system, who are still like Agent Smith could come into their body at any moment, and then they turn against you. Their claws come out. The fangs come out. And it happens often. It's happened often enough, and I'm grateful that it did, that I realized that these defense mechanisms got to be for those in our environment as well. Those who call us brother, those who call us sister. You know, those closest to us at times can do the most damage. And it's really not them that's doing the damage. It's the colonizer through their mind control, using them to cause the damage because your own people are not going to want to accept the idea of who you are. Some of them will, some of them won't. But those who don't, they might turn against you. And I've had that happen. Their claws might come out against you. They may try and do you harm. They may try and bring you down. Their jealousies, their fears, their hatreds, just their programming even, may try and take you down. So that's a whole other defense mechanism of the mind. You have to be able to tell your brother, like, yo, you need to back off. Yo, this is what it is. No, I'm not allowing that. People will say something about your craft or something to you to try and hurt you because they're jealous of it. You have to have that defense mechanisms up. When I was first learning to rhyme, I would get all kinds of advice that was meant to stop me and hurt my feelings and make me not want to rap no more. But because I knew, I already knew these metaphysics. Thank you, teacher. I already knew these metaphysics. I already knew what was coming. I could see them coming. I was prepared for it. Now, it hit the shield and it was like, boom, whoa, and it threw me back a little at first until I learned to have the shield up, fortified, boom, boom, and then I had the sword out, bing, bing, bad idea, diss my disbeliefs, debate my doubts, face my fears. Boom, once I learned how to fight back, now it's no problem. But back then, I had those shields up, but yeah, I'd be taking a beating on those shields, and it wasn't easy, but like I said, I knew the metaphysics of it, so it was easier to overcome. So expect that. As you start growing, expect that. And when that adversity comes, and you realize, you just say, wait a minute, this adversity isn't here to do me harm. This adversity is here to strengthen me. This adversity is here to empower me. Oh man, I have the power. That's when it comes. That's when you have the power. That's when we have the power. When we realize that adversity is to strengthen us. That's when the transmutation happens. That's when the hip hop happens. We just hip hop into that new way of thinking and being and vibrational energy field. And all of a sudden now, we are mastering the mind. We have mastered the mind. The mind no longer masters us. We're the samurai who's mastered their sword. The sword no longer masters us. The word no longer masters us. We master the word. And when you've mastered the word, you can hear the soul speak. You can hear the lies. You can hear all kinds of things because you're a master of the word. You're a master of the spoken word. You don't have to be an MC to be a master of the spoken word. You don't have to be a DJ to make a dope beat that makes people feel great, but you are a DJ. And if you've mastered the spoken word, you are an MC, even if you don't even call yourself that. These are profound, natural-born, God-created gifts that are right here, right now in our environment, and they don't cost no money, right? All it takes is some faith. And even if the faith is weak, the faith will be stronger and stronger as the faith is put to use. Put it to use. Put your mind to use. Put your mind to work for you through meditation, affirmation, prayer. And my nobility, It's just been shown over and over and over and over again. It's been proven on one level or the other. You know, Michael Jordan proved it. Bruce Lee proved it. Muhammad Ali proved it. Bruce Lee proved it. Martin Luther King proved it. The teacher proved it. Prince proved it. You could watch, like I was saying, watching the Food Network proves it. Watch the power of the mind of the guy, the man or the woman who wins the Food Network challenge. You know, who's going to be the best chef or the new Iron Chef or whatever that challenge is. It's the mind. It's the mind of the competitor. It's the mind state. It's because the mind makes the abilities. The mind brings and attracts the abilities in. The mind is the one that disciplines for the new abilities to come in. Put the mind to use for you, my nobility. It's there for a reason. And if your mind is a master, it's mastering you for a reason. But it'll only be for a short season, just for a season of time, that you need to be mastered by your mind until you fully realize the divine design, that your true mind is not a crime. No, your true mind is a sign that you are divine. And that when you rhyme and speak forward the word, your environment will prove that it's heard by reflecting it back to you in multiple ways and fractals too. This is an amazing creation. We feel it with every sensation. The right mind state will get us off of the digital plantation and the mental plantation and the physical plantation and create for us a holy hip-hop nation. We are under constant observation by our Creator. So we can just take this moment and give our gratitude to that which gives us the breath of life. We thank you, God, for all that is right. We thank you for teaching us and for showing us the way that you created. And through you, we are all saved, we are all nurtured, we are developed, we are enhanced, we are forged in the fire of your love. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Let's put up the gospel of hip-hop right now. I'm going to read this again, just like last week, and I know that this is the deeper study. This is for those who can hang. I don't know how many people actually hang this far into these messages from the ministers, But for those who can hang, I bring this to you, This is brought to you because you can hang. And you can turn in your gospel of hip-hop here. Let me grab it. Because this is kind of the second part of this tonight, even though we're getting probably closer to the end than the beginning. But okay, you can open up your gospel of hip-hop to page 377. And we're going to read and begin with paragraph 108. Same as last week, same exact reading as last week. But as I said at the beginning of this, I wanted to do the exact same reading from a different perspective, from a different fractal angle, from a different reflection. Paragraph 108. This starts with the teaching, and then we're going to read from Manly P. Hall. What you see in italics is Manly P. Hall. Same reading as last week, but we're going to see it from a whole different meaning this week. Mastery of spiritual knowledge is found not in what one knows or in what one teaches. It is found in what one does and in how one lives. Now remember, this week is called the mind as a weapon. So that's the spirit that we're reading it in this week. The mind is a weapon, and a weapon being defense and offense and an instrument, an organ to be played. Manly P. Hall says, no one can actually experience internal illumination and not reveal this enlargement of understanding in daily living. Growth is a positive process and bears witness to itself. We know that improvement is real when it refines and ennobles human character. The lives of mystics prove the victory of internal light over internal darkness. The mind is a weapon, my nobility. The lives of mystics proves the victory of internal light over internal darkness. Those mystics, we just talked about them. The teacher is a mystic. Martin Luther King is a mystic. Bruce Lee is a mystic. The lives of mystics prove the victory of internal light over internal darkness. Manly P. Hall. Paragraph 109. And know this, just as bats see clearer by natural sonar, similarly humans see clearer in spirit, even though we have natural eyes. For it is our natural senses that illuminate and receive light when in use. Light stimulates the ability of the eyes, yet it is of the eyes, or worldly sight, yet it is the eyes, or worldly sight, that distract the hip-hopper from life into spirit. Darkness is not the absence of light, it is the presence of a different light, which requires a different kind of sight. Read that again. This is the weapon, my nobility. Wield the light in this way. Know your lightsaber as his way. Darkness is not the absence of light, it is the presence of a different light, which requires a different kind of sight. True hip-hoppers eventually learn how to switch their sight or withdraw their natural senses at will. Whenever we use our natural senses to either give or receive, we spiritually glow or illuminate. When we illuminate through the use of our natural senses, our very light attracts devils. Consider this. There are two ways in which the enlightened illuminate light. One way is when light is received in the form of health, love, awareness, or wealth. That's H-law. These lesser lights, vibrations, assist the enlightened one while in the world. The other way is when those same lights and vibrations are stored in one's spirit self and then given or illuminated towards others. See, you could just be cutting through the ignorance, the dense ignorance of somebody else with your word or even with your love. Love is a powerful weapon, my nobility. It can knock out adversaries who are attacking your loved ones. The power of love. You will notice that whenever you try to do what is good or achieve what is good, there is always opposition. Always, my nobility. One of the ways spiritually minded people know that they are blessed is when victory is achieved in the face of adversity. Such victories, however, should mature you from being just spiritually minded to being spiritually active. For the average hip-hopper, adversity is the work of devils. But for the teacher, transforming adversity, fear, doubt, disbelief, and temptation into understanding, faith, love, security, courage, and discipline is the work of God. And see, this is the transmutation. This is the transforming. This is the different sight. Adversity is there to strengthen us, my nobility. Such victories are almost always won in battle. For such adversity strengthens the spiritual skill of the teacher. For we are never afraid to display high spiritual skill against ignorance and other obstacles and traps of inner city life. Teachers are never afraid to fight. Moving in spirit at the source, in the dark, in chaos, with the natural senses withdrawn, emotionally centered. See, emotionally centered, that's the samurai. When he's mastered the sword, he is emotionally centered. You cannot even be seen by devils, wandering ignorance, because you are emitting no light awareness in the physical world. Your awareness and activity is spiritual with physical results. You deny the value of the physical world. You are not focused upon the physical world. You are not flashing and flossing your light awareness in the physical world. So to the people of the physical world, you are incomprehensible, even invisible. For everything is truly everything. And to really comprehend the all of everything, one must comprehend chaos. But such an awareness is not actually chaotic. It only appears chaotic to the intellect because the intellect creates the physical world of rational thought and individual things by denying the true reality of the oneness so that it can focus. However, and this is it right here. However, it can be very uncomfortable and difficult to have your senses continuously withdrawn from sense objects while living in the inner city.
It is difficult for the compassionate hip hopper not to assist those in need when living in the inner city. But the attuned hip hopper must always remember that people are where they are because of who they are. Be careful with whom you choose to help, assist, or support. Sometimes you can make things worse. I just felt that land with somebody out there. Man, that one landed good, right on. To remain invisible to devils, jealousies, etc., you cannot receive nor give light, awareness, resources, etc., lest the devils, jealousy, etc., will see you and attack you. It's like the deer that must go to the lake to drink, sensing that the lion is waiting right there. Nature is set up in such a way that your predator will always be waiting at the place that you must go to receive or give nourishment. This means that every time your God must help you or you must help others, devils are attracted to that very situation, for they too are part of the great event, and their adversarial nature actually strengthens the spiritual sight awareness of the teacher. But once they, the devils, realize that they are dealing with the teacher, indeed, they begin running. Again, you will know when you are blessed when there are oppositions, fears, and or other challenges in the way of achieving your goal or purpose. They are there for you to overcome and learn from. Most opportunity is found in difficulty. Most of the greatest discoveries are found in the darkest of life circumstances. Stay focused upon the ultimate cause, God, not the temporary effects, people, places, things, and circumstances. However, even in the light, the enlightened are seen, hunted, and randomly attacked by devils. However, the teacher uses the mind as a weapon against the devils while giving and receiving light in the world. Let's read that again. However, even in the light, the enlightened are seen, hunted, and randomly attacked by devils. However, the teacher uses the mind as a weapon against the devils while giving and receiving light in the world. Armed with an awareness of the truth that is backed up by a consistent character of righteousness, the teacher effortlessly defeats and transforms devils. The attuned hip-hopper prepares ahead of time for encounters with devils. We do not run or hide from circumstances that can do us harm. We prepare for them. Attuned hip-hoppers are never afraid to display their skills and talents in battle. We are already victorious. The endarkened are not seen by devils because their existence does not always require the light, help, assistance, security of their God. They, the endarkened, have learned to walk in the dark with God without the use of their intellectual abilities. After we attain enlightenment, having realized ourselves as spirit beings, we no longer need the crutch or assistance of a sign, a plan, etc. to guide our intellect and natural senses. At this stage, we walk with or trust our God when we are intellectually blind. We no longer need to receive or illuminate light in order to see our way in the world. We are no longer afraid of the dark. We are no longer distant from our God. There is nothing to give and nothing to receive in the oneness of our God. We need not ask God for anything when we realize that everything is already available. Here we pray not for God's light to come to us. Here we simply exist as the light in the darkness. We are no longer afraid of the dark. We are light. My nobility. The mind is a weapon. When it's wielded properly, we are no longer afraid of the dark. We are light. We are no longer afraid of our outer environment. We are the light of our world. For enlightenment is like a light bulb being turned on in a dark room just long enough for you to get a glimpse of what is in the room. Then the light bulb is turned off again. Having been enlightened helps you to see some of the furniture and items of your room, your environment. Enlightenment also shows you where the windows and doors are in your room, your environment. It literally shows you where life's exits and entrances are. Enlightenment shows you exactly where and who you are in life. Look at that. Enlightenment shows you exactly where and who you are in life. With this knowledge, you know how to approach your life and how to escape confusion and unnecessary suffering. Those who have been enlightened are the beneficiaries of being in illuminating situations. However, they do not remain there mentally or spiritually. For the most part, we live in darkness. When God turns the light awareness on in your room, your life, you will also see where your devils, your ignorances are. Likewise, those devils will see you. Like moths attracted to flames, devils are attracted to enlightened beings. Now pay attention here, my nobility. This is so important in the beginning, in the environments you find yourselves in. You're going to be in new environments. These will be first time in some of these environments. Observation, endarkenment, being invisible in these environments. This is a great lesson for these reasons. As you are studying the way of this gospel, it is not always wise to illuminate yourself by either calling God into your life or expressing the will of your God in your life or even showing the practice of your skills and talents. Don't be a show-off. Sometimes it is best to follow your God's voice in the dark and secret, avoiding unnecessary challenges. As I've said many times, real bad boys move in silence. Look at that, avoiding unnecessary challenges. My nobility, we will be facing in our lives so many necessary challenges. It is wise to avoid unnecessary challenges. Why waste your time on an unnecessary challenge when you can be fortifying yourself, being ready for a necessary challenge, a challenge that you must overcome? Don't waste your time. We should never waste any of our time on unnecessary challenges. Remember, real bad boys move in silence. For when the light comes on in your life, it is obvious that there are devils in the same room with you. If the light stays on for too long, you can be attacked. The one God turns the light on in your life just at the right time and for what seems like only a second, you then see the reality of your situation, life, and return to the darkness. It is when God calls you and in faith you come without intellectual or rational assistance through the challenges that you are endarkened. You are endarkened when you have learned to use the purpose that you were born with to survive in the world, intellectually unassisted. Not that you will never need intellectual light, but when your light attracts devils, endarkenment becomes a helpful spiritual alternative. Trust God. God is in the dark and the chaos, providing light like nourishment, protection, and guidance to the intellect, even when the intellect cannot see or plan its own way. Whew! For when you are no longer afraid of the dark, the chaos, and can see and act in the dark, the so-called chaos, you are spiritually mature. You are endarkened. You move in a realm where everything seems to effortlessly happen right on time and just when you need it to. Your only hindrance is worry, which is actually denial of your God. Let's take a moment there. Your only hindrance is worry, which is actually the denial of your God. Your only hindrance is worry, which is actually the denial of your God. Yo, my nobility, I remember hearing this for the first time back in 2005. And that was a powerful statement that my worry was the denial of God. I meditated for like 3 or 4 years on that as I realized that I had a subconscious program, that I was a worrywart, that I worried all the time, that I was a worried little man. When I was born, I was always told I was worrying. And I believed that I was stuck with this disease called worry. And when I heard that, worrying is denial of God, I realized that worry created so much denial of God and blocked so many of God's gifts and sight and miracles in my life because of that worry. And why? Because worry is just, you don't believe that God is with you even in dark circumstances. Worry is that you don't know that God has your back. Even if you know it, you don't believe it. My nobility, worry is the denial of God. No need to worry, my nobility. Have faith. That's spiritual confidence. For when you learn to accept the guidance of that invisible intelligence that guides our direction, even when you are not thinking about it, things just always seem to work in your favor. At this level of consciousness, even when things seem to be going all wrong to your intellect, you are at peace in the knowing that everything is actually working in your favor. Nothing exists outside of God. Now go and kick the devil's ass And there it is. Yo, and there it is, my nobility. Closed. Yo. We are the light in the darkness. And remember that in darkness, that the darkness is just another form of light. What others call chaos, it only looks like chaos to the human intellect. There's no chaos to God. It's all wholeness, it's all perfection to God. And so when we tune in, when we tune our instrument in, we tune our mind in to that perfection of God, God then just molds us in to that vision that God has for us. And then God can wield us, and we wield our mind in that darkness. And then we are no longer mastered by our environment. We begin to master our environment. We're no longer mastered by our mind. We master our mind. And then when we see these dark circumstances, these difficult circumstances in life, this adversity in life, and we realize that this adversity is here to empower us and here to strengthen us, that's when the tables are turned. That's when we are the universal DJ. That's when we are empowered. Why? Because we know, oh, adversity is here. Bam, I'm about to get more powerful. I'm about to get stronger now after I face this adversity. And the more adversity we start facing, the adversity just becomes easier. You almost welcome it. You get so good at it that the adversity that comes your way, you got to welcome it. And it's not always easy, my nobility. Like, trust me. I've been going through it for a couple of years with my father's passing. Like, this wasn't, I was prepared ahead of time by God for this. But like, this has not been easy. And after the cycle is completed, and after the lessons will be learned when I'm looking back on this time I'm in, I just know that I'm walking in faith, sometimes in the darkness, often in the darkness. I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. I don't know, there's a lot that I may not intellectually know, but I'm tuned into God. God already knows. So when my intellect needs to know, it's clued in, it's told, it's brought to me. But God already knows, and I don't need constant reassurance and signs from God that everything's going to be okay. I already know it. I don't worry. I don't sit here worrying about it. I used to back in the early days of my apprenticeship, especially when I was breaking free of the matrix. But now it's part of the process. And I realize I'm in this dark time because I'm learning a very enlightening lesson, a very empowering lesson. And I'm seeing that lesson, I'm feeling it because I'm becoming it now. But it won't be until, 2, 3, 4 years from now, we're looking back at this time, that the real nectar will be brought out. But right now, in this time, I can look back 3, 4 years ago and pull the nectar out of those situations, out of that adversity that was faced, out of the darkness was faced there. Because I just continue to keep growing. God continues to put us in circumstances where we can grow. Where we get that pressure, and then we become a multifaceted gem, and then God's hand can cut us from a raw piece of quartz, into something really beautiful, and this is made by God right here, and human hands helped and assisted. It's amazing. It's amazing what we can create. It's amazing what our hands can create, what our mind can create, what our words can create, what our soul, what our warm heart can create, what our spirit can create, what God can create through us. It's simply amazing. And don't be afraid to use that mind as a weapon. Let the mind be your defense mechanism. Let the mind be your offensive weapon as well. If somebody has to get put in their place, put them in their place. If somebody has to get called out, call them out. If somebody has to just remain silent, be the one who remains silent. And learn the lessons. Embrace the lessons. Embrace the mistakes. Mistakes are going to happen along the way. That's strengthening. That's the adversity. That's the empowerment. Making the mistakes. Going through the doubt. Going through the disbelief. When disbelief comes, say, I'm going to diss my disbeliefs because this disbelief is here to strengthen me. And as I overcome, and once I no longer have this disbelief, I have belief. I have confidence. I perceive who I am and what I am about here. Oh, this doubt's coming at me? I'm going to debate this doubt. Come on, doubt, what you got? I thought so, doubt. You may say that, but did you know this, this, and this? I thought so, doubt. Now there's no more doubt. There's only faith. And face your fears. Oh, you coming at me now, fear? I wield the sword no longer wields me. So I'm going to face my fears and cut through the fears with the light of truth, transmuting that fear back into faith, back into love, whatever that fear is going to get transmuted back into. This takes character. This is the character of a spiritually attuned hip-hop of my nobility. As you go forward in this week, in health, in love, in awareness, in wealth, in peace and prosperity, I say unto you, my nobility, there it is. Hey! Your heart is warm and full of love. There it is.